Princeton?
Yes!
Princeton is blessed to have you.
Oh.
Now you all from all around the country, huh?
Yes. Yes.
Ooh, California, raise your hand. Oh, California how?
Los Angeles.
LA, where else? Where else?
New York. New York. Georgia.
Oregon and Georgia. From Baytown?
No, a little bit further south.
How far down?
Albany, Georgia.
Albany, Georgia. I got to straighten out with Albany. Oh, great city. What about Texas? We got some folks from Texas. Where my mother grew up. It's a very serious place. Bush has no monopoly on Texas. Y'all know that. My mama's from Texas. What about New Jersey?
Hi.
But first, I'd like to just pay tribute to Brother Josh and the teachers. Let's give them a hand for the heart. There's another group I'll be seeing in about 2 weeks or so. It's magnificent to have the young brothers and sisters of all colors come through Princeton to keep things alive. And by keeping alive, I mean both intellectual ferment as well as bearing witness, which means you all have been talking about justice. Is that right?
Yeah.
You've been talking about social misery. You've been talking about people catching hell. You've been talking about the wretched of the earth, keeping track of their humanity and their individuality. They're being precious and priceless like anybody else, no matter what color, what civilization, or sexual orientation. Is that what you all been doing?
Yes, sir.
With democracy.
Yeah.
Well, I want to just highlight a few things. And the important thing is, we won't call them witch prompts. We want conversation. We want dialogue.
There was strange fruit, blood on the leaves, and blood at the root, black bodies swinging in the southern breeze.
Strange fruit the southern trees bear that Billie Holiday sang about. Anybody heard that song? The Jewish brother Maripol who wrote the lyrics. What is that song about? Strange fruit the southern trees bear. What is it, my dear sister?
Strange fruit is about lynchings in the South.
Yeah, absolutely. Black bodies swaying in the southern breeze. It's about American terrorism. It's about Jim Crow. It's about James Crow. That's the catastrophic too. Catastrophic can be what? Heartbreak. It can be shipwreck. It could be patriarchal violence against women. It could be the trashing of gay brothers and lesbian sisters. It could be white supremacist scars and wounds in the souls of peoples of color. All of those are catastrophic, and the blues comes along and says, look at the catastrophic in the face, but keep a smile and a fortitude and a determination. Find your voice. How old are you all now?
16.
About 17. So usually, you know the difference between a voice and an echo? The echo is an imitation. A voice is a creation. You can't be a jazz person unless you find your voice. You can't find your voice unless you find out who you really are. You can't be an imitation. You can't be an echo.
He's phony. She's fake. That's the type of people I hate.
If you're a copy, you're just trying to get over. You're not trying to find out who you really are. You're not trying to be an original. You're not trying to find your voice. You're just an imitation in order to be successful in the narrow sense. I teach in the prisons here in New Jersey. Just the Trenton State Prison just recently. When I go into prisons, what do I see too often? I see the brothers who have a stare rather than a vision. You know the difference between a stare and a vision? When you just have a stare, it's flat-footed. Usually, you don't want to look in other people's eyes, because the eyes are the windows of the soul, and if you distrust other people and your soul been so wounded, you always want to look away. Even when you're having a conversation, yeah, brother, well, look at me, man. No, I'm just, look at me. Soul to soul. Mind to mind. Shake out of that stare. Stare is connected with sleepwalking. Wake up. Take courage to wake up. Love. Love will wake a motherfucker up. Love will wake you up. You got to fall in love. You got to surrender to something bigger than you. It means you get outside of your own ego. It's not just me, I. Get beyond that narcissism. Love, but first fall in love with wisdom. That's philosophy. That's what philosophy means. I love. Love. Wisdom. First time we ever get this notion, Western civilization is in Plato's Republic. Line 607, B5, where he talks about the traditional quarrel between philosophy and poetry. He's trying to displace Homer, to push Homer aside, and say there ought to be at the center this love of wisdom that takes the form of, for him, discourse, not poetic expression. But most important, whether you believe that philosophy is rooted in poetry or whether you believe philosophy is independent of poetry, you've got to learn how to love. One of the worst things in our market-driven society, so obsessed with titillation and stimulation, obsessed with narrow conceptions of reputation, what I call the culture of superficial spectacle. But the important point is, in a market-driven culture, it's very difficult to stress non-market values. And the most fundamental non-market value in the whole world in your life will be forms of love. Beginning with a quest outside of yourself, philosophical reflection, love of wisdom. We love of people. We love of a great cause. We love of country. We love of narratives that you encounter in your synagogue, or in your mosque, or in your church. Or if you're atheist and agnostic, it could be poetry that blows your mind. It could be the music of Leonard Cohen. Anybody know Leonard Cohen? Check that brother out. Canadian Jewish brother. Powerful. Musical expression of a love of wisdom. But the real hook that takes us out of our narrowness, of parochialism and provincialism, are going to be forms of love. Or I could put it another way, certain kinds of love. Because of course there's love of self. There's love of pleasure, hedonism. There's love of property. There's love of power. All of those very narrow. There's a fundamental sense in which when you raise the question, which is really at the center of democracy, which is the dignity of those Sly Stone called everyday people, and them believing that they are not only human but have the right to raise their voices in decision-making processes in institutions that guide and regulate their lives. That's what Thomas Jefferson was about. Y'all talked about Brother Tom, didn't you? Mm-hmm. Complicated brother, isn't it? Yeah. Freedom fighter, slaveholder. Uh-oh, contradiction. Contradictions. Tom, you look so magnificent in the face of the largest empire in the world, the British Empire. Fight! What courage, Tom. What you doing with Sarah at night? She's not just a slave, but she's 15. Statutory rape. Tell the truth, right? And of course, in saying that, we're not trashing the brother, no, or demonizing him, not at all. You know why? Because there's a contradiction. What do I do? Shut in your own soul right now.
Stop, go, fail, succeed, live, or die. I just gotta believe.